What if the way we understand the mind is fundamentally wrong? Despite all our progress, mental health continues to decline, and the systems designed to address it barely make a dent. Before things get much worse, we may need to return to a basic question: what is the mind, really? Modernity brought a remarkable improvement in the health of the body, and yet, when it comes to the mind, the trend moves in the opposite direction. Medicine is built on a careful understanding of how the body functions and on preserving that natural order. Ideas about physical health that emerge from speculation are quickly dismissed, because the cost of being wrong is too high. But when it comes to mental health, that same discipline is no longer applied. We allow ideas to redefine what the mind is and how it ought to function. The trouble psychology faces goes much deeper than that. Its principles are built on a materialistic model. The mind is treated as an emergent property of matter, a kind of byproduct, with no clearly defined structure of its own. Most often, psychology approaches the mind through its distortions. In effect, it reduces it to its pathologies, just as if we reduce the body to its diseases. Of course, nothing could be farther from the truth. The body is defined by its internal structure, encoded down to its very DNA. Little by little, we are uncovering that reality is organized in terms of discrete encoded information, even at the level of the universe itself. And yet, of all things, the human mind, the crown jewel of computation, is treated as if it had no coherent structure of its own. In truth, not even an analog one, for analog systems follow clear rules. But what if the nature of the mind is actually digital? That would imply a fully formed system with a defined internal architecture, one that cannot be reshaped at will any more than the body's physiology can. The book I'm writing is not about politics or ideology. It is a model of the mind based on an informational framework, one that attempts to describe how the mind develops, processes experience, and generates dreams, reasoning, and even mythology. What becomes clear is this: once the mind is approached as a coherent system, its mechanisms begin to reveal themselves. Let's look more concretely at the difference between a material and an informational model of the mind. What would a digital model actually imply? We can begin with something simple. Children are not fully developed adults, but they are fully human, despite barely being capable of reasoning. This already points to something important. Instincts and emotions are not random or incomplete. They form a comprehensive environment for human existence. In other words, what we might call the affective system is a stable, precise, and complete informational framework for the mind. By contrast, the analytical system develops gradually over time. It provides a narrower, more focused form of logic, but it remains a work in progress. Its role is not to replace the affective system, but to complement it. The two systems are not interchangeable. They operate according to different forms of logic and must work together in a structured way for the mind to remain healthy. Within the materialistic understanding of the mind, however, this balance is lost. On the one hand, the role of emotions in mental well-being is often inflated. On the other hand, emotions are treated as unreliable, something to be corrected or replaced by rational thinking. Both approaches destabilize the mind. When emotional stimulation saturates the environment, the individual becomes overwhelmed by emotional logic. What follows may feel natural and comforting, but it creates the very conditions in which mental disorders take root. When emotions are dismissed, the individual is forced to rely on an analytical system that has not had the proper conditions to develop. What emerges may resemble reason, but it is most often nothing more than rationalization. In the end, simply declaring ourselves happy or rational may be magical thinking. Historically, medicine had limited success until we understood the inner workings of the body. Today, we are trying to heal the mind without a clear model of how it functions. This is not a minor issue. It affects how we think, how we live, how we suffer, our entire existence. For most of human history, a person was not understood as a self-contained unit, but as part of a wider structure of reciprocity. One's well-being depended on the well-being of others. In that context, life was shaped by responsibility, by sacrifice, and by clearly defined limits. This arrangement maintained the mind in a healthy and stable state. Following the Enlightenment, a new vision began to take shape, one that gradually steered the human mind in the opposite direction. The individual was placed at the center, and the goal shifted toward freedom from limits, comfort, and personal happiness. But this shift came with a cost. The structures that once gave life coherence began to weaken, while the individual became increasingly isolated, left to construct identity, stability, and meaning alone. And this is where psychology finds itself today. It is asked to heal individuals removed from their natural environment. No matter how good therapists might become, the best they can do is help their patients adapt to a dysfunctional society misaligned with human nature. Materialism has had a strong grip on the so-called social sciences, but we have reached a point where we can no longer afford to experiment on ourselves. The mind is a resilient system, but there is a limit to what it can endure. Building a comprehensive model of the mind may be the work of centuries, if it can ever be achieved in full. But we do not need to solve the whole mystery of the mind before taking the first necessary steps. The main issue is not how to heal the mind, but how to stop harming it. The principles that sustain the mind are not new. They are found in ways of life shaped by discipline, sacrifice, and meaning, and even within time-honored practices that actively restore mental health. Instead of reinventing the mind, we should seek to understand it, but more importantly, step back and rediscover what we have lost. Well, that's it for this video. If you think this journey is worthwhile, feel free to subscribe and share. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again on the battlefield.